Hello and welcome back. We are gonna end up dividing 6.6 into two different sections. This first one obviously is about hormones, specifically talking about what hormones you need to be aware of and what they do, and talking about feedback loops and homeostasis. The second part of 6.6 is all about reproduction, but it was just so long to put them together, so we're just going to divvy them up into two different things. So let's dive into hormones, what they do, why you should care about them, and the specific ones IB wants you to know. So to begin with, hormones are dealt out through the endocrine system. So hormones are secreted directly into the blood and carried to target tissues from these glands in your body. Whatever the hormone role in the body is will change the condition of the tissue that it is going and targeting. That's the point of a hormone. Okay, this is monitored through feedback loops, negative and positive feedback loops, but mostly negative. We're going to talk about what that means at the end of this little lecture, but there are both negative and positive feedback loops. We're going to focus on negative feedback loops. The key glands are numbered appropriately and the numbers match up. So the pineal gland is in the brain. It's very, very tiny. The pituitary gland looks like a grape on the bottom of your brain. The thyroid gland is like at your throat. The thymus is in your chest. Adrenal glands are on your kidneys. The pancreas is its own organ. And then depending on if you are biologically male or female, you either have ovaries or testes. Continuing on, these are most of the hormones that you will need to know. So insulin converts glucose, right, blood sugar, to glycogen. Glucagon does the opposite. Okay, so insulin and glucagon are inverse of each other. This is how you maintain your blood sugar in your body. If you have too much sugar, insulin will convert it to glycogen, which can be stored in a much easier way, and then when your blood sugar is low, glucagon comes in and converts glycogen to glucose so that you can use that sugar. Adrenaline, I'm sure that you've heard of this one. This is your flight or fight response. This increases your heart rate. This, like, if you're an adrenaline junkie, you love that feeling of like, like you're on the edge of your seat, like right before you're gonna like go down a steep roller coaster, like bungee jump or something. I personally hate this feeling. I don't like scary movies. I don't like feeling this. There's never a time in my life where I want to feel scared on purpose. I only want to feel scared when like literally I should be like running for my life. That's it. Every other time I just want to be normal. Testosterone is responsible for sperm production, male body development. FSH, which stands for follicle stimulating hormone, stimulates the oocytes, which is egg cells. LH, which is luteinizing hormone, develops the endometrium. This is the inner lining of your uterus. Estrogen stimulates ovulation, the release of an egg. Progesterone maintains the endometrium, so luteinizing hormone develops it, but then it can't actually sustain the needs of an endometrium, and so progesterone is like, hey, I got you, don't worry about it. HCG, which is human chorionic gonadotropin, maintains high levels of estrogen and progesterone, which is necessary to maintain pregnancy. And then oxytocin causes contractions of the uterus in childbirth. Are you sensing a trend here? Because most of these deal with pregnancy, which makes sense because chapter 6 is actually all about reproduction. We're going to be talking a lot about hormones and their effects on pregnancy. So what do hormones control? Shocker, reproduction, right? That's like what this whole thing is about, reproduction, growth and development, mobilization of body defenses, which deals with like immune system, maintenance of most of your homeostasis, like blood sugar, dealing with like when you get a cut in your immune system, you need to like fix the infection and fix the skin barrier. regulation of metabolism. Most of the chemical reactions that happen in your body are somewhat of a result of hormones. Some examples, these are clearly not the examples from 2 slides ago. These are new ones, so you should definitely know about them. Thyroxine is a thyroid hormone, which makes sense because the prefix is almost identical, or like the word is almost identical. And this controls the metabolic rate and helps control body temperature. So your body temperature is partially controlled by your throat area, which is interesting. Leptin is secreted by adipose tissue, which is like fat tissue. This controls your appetite. So if you have more adipose tissue, you produce more leptin, which makes you have less of an appetite. However, when you kind of like go above that threshold and are clinically considered obese, you have enough leptin, but you also have resistance to that, so you don't actually get that suppressed appetite because your body's almost like overriding it. And then melatonin, I don't know, maybe you've heard of this. There's like pills of melatonin you can take, and it's to control your circadian rhythms, but also promotes sleep. So a lot of people that can't sleep at night or like have trouble actually falling asleep take melatonin at night, and it's this, faux hormone, but it like helps, it releases this process of this secretion, and kind of helps your body find its circadian rhythm, which is like the circadian rhythm is the idea of night versus day, and like how your body is like, okay, it's like 10:30 p.m. This is like my normal bedtime. This is when I should go to bed, and then maybe you wake up at a normal time. And if you maintain a decent circadian rhythm, like even on the weekends or something, you typically wake up at the same time because that's your internal clock, right? Your body clock. Melatonin itself, the actual hormone, is secreted from the hypothalamus and the pineal gland. So the hypothalamus gives instructions to the pineal gland, and then it is secreted into the rest of your body. The pancreas is kind of double dipping here. It's in the endocrine system, but it's also part of the digestive system. It produces enzymes for digestion, just like naturally, but it also produces hormones to regulate blood sugar, specifically insulin and glucagon, which we discussed earlier in this presentation. So talking about blood glucose levels, there are 2 types of cells that we're going to talk about. There's alpha cells and beta cells. So alpha cells produce glucagon stimulated by low blood glucose, which causes the liver to break down glycogen and turn it into glucose. The glucose is released into the blood, and then your blood sugar levels rise. Beta cells do the opposite. They produce insulin, and they're stimulated by high blood sugar levels, right? High glucose levels. So insulin causes cells to take in that sugar, and then the liver converts glucose to glycogen for storage. And we sort of talked about this earlier, but this is like the actual notes you should take on it. And you should absolutely know that alpha cells equals glucagon and beta cells equals insulin. Diabetes is a result of your inability to produce or respond to insulin, depending on if you have type 1 or type 2 diabetes. The result of diabetes is severely high levels of glucose in the blood, and when it's that high, it can also be excreted into the urine, which is not good. You don't want anything in the urine except waste products, and glucose is not actually a waste product. You want to keep that in your body in a manageable way. So type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune attack on the pancreas. So beta cells are destroyed, no insulin is produced. This, you can't like quote unquote fix type 1 diabetes. This happens more in children and young adults than older humans, and the treatment is just insulin injections at appropriate times, constant monitoring of blood sugar levels, and basically you are like you as the person with diabetes are taking care of your insulin levels, you're monitoring it, you're adding more if necessary, you are being conscious of too high and how to fix that. Type 2 diabetes is reduced responsiveness in target cells, so insulin resistance. It's not an autoimmune attack, it is resistance that has been formed. This is typically associated with obesity, lack of exercise, age, and sometimes genetics. The treatment here is a change in lifestyle. So change in diet, adding exercise to your routines, losing weight. A lot of that can help fix this resistance issue. So type 2 typically happens later on in life and is sometimes treatable. Now, homeostasis. This is something you have been learning for years and years, and pretty much every science class, I'm sure, has had this word mentioned to you at least once. And homeostasis is maintaining the internal environment of the body within safe limits, regardless of what's happening on the external environment. So you want to keep your body temperature in a normal range. Blood pH, normal range. CO2 concentration, guess what I'm going to say? Normal range. You do not want to go too far outside of this range that we have, because then enzymes don't work correctly, your metabolism is messed up, everything just isn't working the way that your body is designed to work. So there is a range that your body should stay in, and homeostasis is the process of maintaining that range. The way that homeostasis works is by monitoring levels and making corrections if the levels get too high or too low outside of that range. And they do this by negative feedback loops. Okay, this is like a thermostat in your house, right? When it gets too cold, you turn on the heat. When it gets too hot, you turn on the air conditioning or a fan. You can control this, and you can you can fix it and make it more comfortable, right? Make it so that you are in the appropriate range. So let's talk about what negative feedback loop actually is. So different organs monitor the levels of different variables and then control those levels, right? We talked about how certain glands are responsible for secreting certain hormones. That's why you have so many glands. There are tons of hormones. So one gland cannot be responsible for every single hormone in your body, so it's divvied up. And then once these organs and hormones are sent out to control these levels, variables are stopped from continuing too far in one direction, either too high or too low. So if you start out hot, the body responds by doing the opposite and cooling you down. Okay, so let's talk about this. If you are, this is your brain, okay, you have your control center here, your hypothalamus, which is sending out information. So if you are too cold, then it sends out information. Your skin is monitoring these levels, and your blood vessels start constricting. There's no sweating, and so you're conserving heat. By conserving heat, your body temperature increases. When your body temperature increases, that goes to your brain, and your brain says, good, I like this. I don't want to be too cold. But sometimes it can overcorrect, and then you go from too cold to all of a sudden you're sweating. You don't want to sweat either. So now it's too hot, and your skin is saying, whoa, 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 now I'm too hot, so I'm going to start sweating because I don't like being too hot. And you'll notice that the blood vessels are dilating. Look at the difference in size between the blood vessels here and here. You're also starting to sweat, right? These glands are releasing water. When the water evaporates off your skin, it's taking that heat with it. When the blood vessels dilate and the sweating begins, your blood temperature decreases. When your blood temperature decreases, your body cools down, and that signal gets sent back to your brain, and your brain is saying, yes, good. I want to be in a normal temperature, because too hot is going to be like a fever, and I'm not sick, but I don't also want to be too hot just in general, because I don't want my enzymes to stop working. I don't want to be feeling sick, and too cold means that your body can't move the way it should normally move, because everything is a little bit chilly, a little bit frozen, right? When your fingers get too cold, it's hard to like grip things the way that you normally would. So ideally, normal condition, and your brain is able to monitor this in negative feedback loops by doing the opposite of what it's doing, of what is happening currently. So if it's too hot, it does things to cool it down, right? Too hot, it does things to cool it down. That's an opposite reaction, okay? If you have questions on negative feedback loops, we'll talk about it more in class, but this is it for today, so great job, and I'll see you later.